Marvel's no stranger to introducing the big bad villain as early as possible. We saw Thanos in the first Avengers, after all. But what if with Avengers Doomsday, they've taken that trend to the extreme? I think Victor Von Doom's always been lurking around in the MCU's shadows, and now it's time to prove it. Let's go over every clue that proves Doctor Doom has been a lot closer than we thought. Doctor Doom's tech. Since Avengers Endgame, the MCU has introduced a surprising number of technologies that manipulate time, space, and reality in very specific ways. These include multiversal engines, dimensional teleportation systems, time travel systems, and even citadels that exist outside the normal flow of time. The thing is, they all rely on the same principles. They manipulate quantum energy to either travel through the flow of time or build bridges between different realities and universes. In Avengers Endgame, Tony Stark is the one who finally cracks time travel by building a quantum-powered platform that lets the Avengers move through the timeline without causing paradoxes. But what's interesting is that this thing doesn't actually work like a traditional time machine. It's not about going back and changing the past.
Time doesn't work that way. Changing the past doesn't change the future.
If you travel to the past, that past becomes your future. And your former present becomes the past, which can't now be changed by your new future.
Exactly.
Instead, it creates a stable bridge between two different points in time so you can move between them without breaking the timeline in the process. And that's important because in the comics, this is almost exactly how Doctor Doom's own time platform works. Doom's version also uses quantum dimensional energy to link 2 points in time rather than overwrite reality. Different design, sure, but both devices are doing the same thing at a conceptual level. And Tony's invention isn't even the only instance of the MCU using technology that's eerily similar to something Doom made in the comics. The first time we see Doom's tech brought to life is in Multiverse of Madness, when Reed Richards uses his teleportation platform. This device basically materializes around him, and it lets him hop between whatever universe he wants. But the most interesting thing? The device Reed uses to teleport was inspired by the comics, specifically Doom's time platform. This isn't even a fan theory anymore. Producer Richie Palmer literally confirmed it. They're showing it, they're confirming it in interviews, but they're not outright naming it. It even looks exactly the same as Doom's device from the comics. This might mean that Doctor Doom already exists in the MCU, and not only that, he's met this version of Reed Richards as well. It might also mean that Doctor Doom, much like Tony Stark, was the one who cracked the mystery of time travel on Earth 838. Honestly, that's not too far-fetched. Doom's one of the smartest guys in the MCU period, and he's easily within the league of people like Stark, Richards, Banners, and in some storylines, just flat out above them. Why do you think he's a multiversal threat? He's just a guy way too good at scheming, who also happens to be ridiculously intelligent. Another link is that the technology Reed uses seems incredibly similar in both function and design to the time doors that the TVA uses. Honestly, the only actual difference is that one's orange while the other's blue. Plus, it's not like that's the only piece of TVA equipment that uses quantum-based technology. Even the collars they use to restrain variants are just smaller, miniature versions of the same principle.
You're now moving at 1/16th speed, but feeling all that pain in real time.
Using quantum energy to alter the flow of time. This is because the collars don't actually restrain you. They just change how time works around you. You see this same kind of tech show up again in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Kang's multiversal engine core is also powered by quantum energy, and it's capable of tearing through timelines and realities entirely. When Janet touches the core, she doesn't just see how it works. She sees Kang's entire multiversal war play out in front of her.
When I touched it, I saw his mind. I felt what he had done. Entire timelines gone.
Granted, it's because his ship is neurokinetic, meaning it's connected with his mind. Even still, the battery or power source is extremely unusual in terms of its capabilities. It's something that actually lets him move through and interact with the structure of the multiverse itself. Now in the comics, Kang, whose real name is Nathaniel Richards, was originally a historian. He just happened to come across Doom's quantum technology, which he then reverse engineered by studying the blueprints. He even ends up amplifying Doom's original invention by supplementing it with the technology of his time. So far, there's a big trend of leaning heavily into comic storylines for all these Doom-related clues. If we follow that, then it might be possible that He Who Remains stole Doom's technology and built the TVA off of that. Plus, with this next clue, it becomes really hard to ignore these odd, nearly one-to-one similarities with the comics. So if something similar is happening in the MCU, then Kang's technology might not be a totally original breakthrough. It could be an evolved version of something that already existed before him. Doom's Castle. And it's not just technology or the TVA. Loki drops a few more clues hiding in plain sight that you wouldn't really notice if you don't know about the comics. For example, in the Season 1 finale of Loki, the Citadel at the end of time is shown to be this massive castle that's just sitting on an asteroid at the very center of the sacred timeline. This is where He Who Remains lives, apparently. But the thing is, he lives in a castle sitting on a space rock in the comics too, except it looks nothing like this. What it does look like is Victor Von Doom's castle in Latveria, almost identical in fact, the same towering spires, Gothic aesthetic, and even the Victorian-era architecture. See for yourself, just a visual similarity, a coincidence, or a hint at something more? If He Who Remains has been using technology that's so similar to Doom's, then could he also have taken his castle? But fine, I'll admit, similar architecture isn't particularly convincing evidence. But then, how do you explain these statues? That looks nothing like He Who Remains. It does look exactly like Dr. Doom, though, down to the menacing hood. Also, it kinda lines up with what we know about Doom. He has a massive ego, and glorifying himself in this way isn't really out of character. If it's not his castle, then what are two statues of the man doing in there? Right at the entrance too? Plus, this might not even be the only time we've seen this castle so far in the MCU. In Moon Knight, Episode 1, Stephen Grant wakes up in this vast green plain. There's only a massive castle in the center. It also happens to look just like Doom's castle, and even the winding mountain road leading up to it is the same as it is in the comics. Plus, it's set above a small European settlement, which is also how we've seen Doom's castle in Latveria. We see Stephen Grant escaping from that very same area in what appears to be an ice cream truck. Average, run-of-the-mill occurrence in a superhero show. However, it's what's inside the truck that stands out. Hidden right behind the driver's seat, in shadow, you can see a box that has Von D labeled on it. That's a direct reference to Victor Von Doom, and in a town that has a castle that looks just like his? That's 3 subtle shoutouts to Doom's character, what we know about him, and even a name drop, all in the same episode. Loki's throne and the Void. We also know that they're adapting the Secret Wars storyline. Now, Marvel does take creative liberties, but let's look at the comics once again for a second. In the Secret Wars comics, we see Doom ruling from a throne that seems to be built into what looks like a world tree, something we just saw at the end of Loki Season 2. Here, he's God Emperor Doom, having taken the throne after the collapse of the multiverse. It feels like they're ripping designs right out of the comics at this point, because Loki's throne looks exactly like Doom's from this storyline. This might be a hint that Doom will eventually take Loki's place throughout Secret Wars and Doomsday, cementing himself as the God Emperor. Plus, a lot of Secret Wars in the comics happen on Battleworld, which is really similar in function to the Void. They're both these makeshift worlds stitched together from multiple collapsed realities. They both act as storage spaces. They're both filled to the brim with remnants of past, dead universes, and variants. And as of Deadpool and Wolverine, the Void has been built up a lot. It's also the perfect stage for a climactic showdown. The Mystery Child. The last clue might actually tie into Doom's backstory, and it comes from a really easy-to-miss moment in Loki Season 2, Episode 4. Mobius casually mentions a TVA mission where a team was sent to track down a variant near the Black Sea who was apparently going to be responsible for an extreme massacre.
A couple of hunters went out on a mission somewhere near the Black Sea to find a variant who's going to be responsible for 5,000 deaths. 5,000 deaths that were not in the proper flow of time.
They show up expecting some dangerous adult, and instead, it's just,
The variant is an 8-year-old boy.
now on its own, that doesn't mean much. But in the comics, Latveria, Victor Von Doom's home country, is located in Eastern Europe, right around that same Black Sea region. And Doom himself was around that same age when his life basically fell apart. His mother, Cynthia Von Doom, was a powerful sorceress who made a deal with Mephisto to protect their people, which backfired and led to her soul being taken to hell. His father, Werner Von Doom, died not long after while they were on the run from the Latverian authorities. Losing both of his parents at a young age is what pushes Victor down the path that eventually leads to him becoming Doom. First, through his obsession with science, and later through his attempts to master magic to free his mother's soul. So, when the MCU mentions an 8-year-old child from near the Black Sea who's destined to cause mass death later in life, it lines up a little too neatly with some of the biggest turning points in Doom's origin story to completely ignore. Also, 5,000 deaths are literally rookie numbers for Doom. He's capable of millions, if not billions, of casualties, so something like that's definitely feasible if this mystery 8-year-old turns out to be a placeholder for Doom. Perhaps one of the greatest clues we have that this isn't some random variant is the fact that the mission doesn't really make sense. So, according to Mobius, the reason this kid needs to be pruned is that he'd cause a lot of deaths, right? Except that the TVA is never concerned about the death count. If they were, the total destruction of Logan's universe probably wouldn't have been accelerated like it was.
How long have we got?
In most cases, a couple of thousand years.
Well, sweet.
Most cases aren't fast enough. Not for me.
Plus, even without obvious inconsistencies like that, the TVA has only one job: maintain the timeline so that there are no variants of He Who Remains. None who could challenge him or usurp his place as the top dog. So, if it's not for saving lives, and this kid isn't a variant of Kang, then there can be only one reason. When this kid grows up, he's a real threat to He Who Remains. And the list of characters who can measure up to that is pretty limited. And even on such a list, Doom is probably the top contender. This is the one thing that always stands out to me. Why prune the kid if all he's going to do is just kill a lot of people? It makes a lot more sense if, instead, the kid grows up, makes his way to the Citadel at the end of time, takes back his castle, his technology, and even Loki's throne. That, lined up with the location, just makes it hard to believe this could be anyone but Doctor Doom. Thor's nightmare. Maybe this one's a bit of a reach, but hear me out. In Avengers Age of Ultron, when Wanda messes with all of the Avengers' heads, each of them has a vision. They see a future they're terrified of. For some, that's the past. But for Thor, it's a future where he failed the Asgardians.
We are all dead. Can you not see it?
At least according to Heimdall. From the way he's talking, it seems like Thor was the one who let them all down. But what really caught my eye was this one hooded figure that the camera focuses on, while it blurs out everyone else. I don't know about you, but that looks a lot like Doctor Doom to me. Plus, dreams aren't just, well, dreams in the MCU. As we know from the Multiverse of Madness, dreams are...
Dreams are windows into the lives of our multiversal selves.
If we can take that bit of lore about dreams at face value, then this could be a lot more than just Wanda messing with Thor's mind. It might be an alternate version of Thor who failed to save the Asgardians from Doom, who now confidently walks among the halls where his victims once danced. Also, it's really brief, but for just a small glimpse, you can see two other instances of that hooded figure. One is when Heimdall yells at Thor to wake up. He's standing right beside the two of them. And the other is a very small frontal view, and that mask looks awfully similar. If you're still skeptical, I don't blame you, but that's the best part of theories. Piecing it together is half the fun. What do you think about Doom being a constant presence in the MCU?